Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. Today with a new video analysis of Jujutsu Kaisen. I'm gonna be going over episode 2 of the anime and chapters 2 and 3 of the manga. Please remember that this is a full analysis of the story. I'm just going episode by episode and chapter by chapter. So there's gonna be a lot of spoilers for both the anime and of course the manga. If you're not up to date with those, I really don't recommend you watching this video. And before starting, please don't forget to follow me on my social media. I have Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. All the links are going to be in the description below. Now, with nothing else to add, let's begin the episode. So in the first episode, of course, I talk a lot about what's the central theme or the most important theme around Jujutsu Kaisen. And one of them is, of course, humanity. And as well as the dehumanization of the Jujutsu sorcerers. So of course in this episode we start with Yuji now turned pretty much into a curse because he ate a cursed object. And of course Megumi willing to kill him. This is also the first moment that we have, or that we see Gojo. I want to add that I don't understand why the anime went with this. In the manga, Gojo doesn't invade like Yuji's personal space like this. It's just one of the many things, or like the little things that the anime did that I personally don't like. Gojo's not like this, okay? He just didn't do this. I don't understand why the anime went for it. It's a little bit uncomfortable, at least for me. A thing with no importance, but it bothers me. Again, this is the first impression that we're gonna have of Gojo, and of course we have the "Don't worry, I'm the strongest." This didn't happen in the manga. This is the first moment that we're gonna start seeing the parallels between Gojo and Sukuna, and I feel like a lot of people missed what was trying to being shown about Sukuna. And I understand it's the hype of seeing Gojo, I guess, fighting super strong, but there's something more to Sukuna that a lot of people just like didn't pay attention to, or maybe didn't see, and that it's very, very important for him as a character, and we're gonna see it again and again in other episodes. And again, it's like it's gonna show us the parallels between Sukuna and Gojo. And one that is very important, at least to me, is the way they approach their battles and the way they see their opponents. So again, this particular moment, Gojo using Sukuna as a chair is not in the manga. I just wanted to say it. But let's just pay attention to the battle, and I'll show you what I'm trying to say with all this. So we have Gojo dismissing Sukuna. Obviously Sukuna gets angry because like Gojo keeps talking about his sweets, his little treat that he bought. And of course it's like in a way talking about his arrogance. Now I'm not saying Sukuna is not arrogant, but you're gonna see what I mean. This is a battle of 10 seconds. I love the camera thing that they did. So here. So this is what I mean when I said like it's one of the parallels, and it's the way they approach battles. Sukuna is not only fighting Gojo, he is looking at what he's doing, and it's something very, very important for Sukuna. He's always trying to learn from his opponents. Even if he obviously has this superiority complex, obviously he sees everybody as less than him, but he's still trying to learn from them, or trying to get information from the way they fight. Even if he sees them as below him, even if he knows they're weaker than him. Obviously in this case, One Finger Sukuna was not gonna be able to defeat Gojo, but we see it in his fight with Megumi. He was absolutely able to defeat Megumi, and he still didn't do it. Why? Because he was observing his curse technique. The same happened with, of course, Jogo, and it's something that he does with Mahoraga. It's Sukuna just wanting to learn about Jujutsu. wanting to learn about his opponents if they seem interesting enough for him. He is a glutton. He loves eating. He loves food. It's literally his favorite thing. But his gluttony is a metaphor as well for his hunger of knowledge and his insatiable curiosity of jujutsu. And again, I think that a lot of people missed this part of him, even though we see it with Megumi as well and with like other battles that we're gonna see in the second season. It's something very important of him, very like defining the character that he is. I know it seems like something unimportant, but it is important. And this is a battle of less than 10 seconds. This is the last time Sukuna is going to refer to Yuji by his name. I'm obviously going to talk a little bit more about how Gojo approaches his battles too, but I want to reach the specific episode, which it's when he fights Jogo. But again, it's a parallel. Everything in Jujutsu Kaisen, it's a cycle, it's a parallel. There are parallels between Yuji and Sukuna, and Yuji and Geto, and Megumi and Gojo, and of course Gojo and Sukuna. Just know that it's a very interesting contrast, and I think it also speaks of the way they grew up, Sukuna and Gojo, how different the environment was for them. The Golden Age of Jujutsu, the Heian era, was a vicious period in history, with Jujutsu sorcerers and curses to being much more stronger than what we see in the modern era. Sorcerers were constantly challenged and pushed to their limits to improve and better their curse techniques. Sukuna himself was challenged multiple times, until sorcerers gave up and he ended up being worshipped instead. After that period, the power of curses and sorcerers alike started to decline until reaching the modern era, where Jujutsu sorcerers are not even common and they're constantly overworked due to the great amount of curses roaming around. The birth of Satoru Gojo caused a shift in the power scale, with an increase in the number and power of cursed spirits as well as the generations of sorcerers that came after him. The increase in power, however, was gradually, leaving a huge gap between him and the rest, with the previous generation being way too weak and the generation after being still too young. Gojo had nobody to challenge him other than Toji, who forced him into awakening his true power. And that's why they ended up with this like completely different way of seeing their opponents and seeing their battles. But we will get to the Gojo part later. So that's another thing, Gojo saying that, oh, he has potential as a vessel. It's another thing that I want to talk about Gojo, and it's the reasons behind why he saved all the kids that he saved. Listen, Gojo is not evil. Me saying this, what I'm about to say, does not mean that Gojo is evil. He's a morally great character, just like any other Jujutsu sorcerer. That's another very important part of the entire anime, and it's how all of them, they're not heroes, they're soldiers. They were trained that way. Again, the society dehumanized them and turned them into soldiers. The reason why Gojo saved all the kids that he saved, it's because at the end of the day, he saw potential in them. And because he needed strong allies. It's the same for all of them. Now, did he care about them? Of course he cared about them, but just saying, oh no, he just wanted to save all these kids because he's just that good, no. At the end of the day, he saved them because he saw potential in them and he needed those strong allies to do what he wanted to do. This doesn't make him evil. Please understand. Because every time we talk about this particular topic about Gojo, people get angry. And there's absolutely no reason to get angry. It's like, there is so much more to this characters than just being evil and than just being bad. Jujutsu Kaisen, it's not story about good and evil. It's story about ideologies. It's story about humanity. So trying to put the characters just in, oh, this one's good, this one's evil, does not work here. The story itself really tries to highlight how morally gray these characters are. I'm obviously talking about Gojo and Megumi and Maki, and obviously like characters like the curses. It's another story, and of course Sukuna's in another area, and Kenjaku's in another area, Toji's in another area. But for these characters in specific, Gojo, they're morally gray, and being morally gray does not make you evil. So yeah, to fully understand Gojo's character, it's important to accept that fact. You don't have a hero, you don't have a character that it's 100% good, that's not gonna do like anything wrong. It's morally gray. And the fact that he's morally gray and saved these kids because they were strong enough for him or for what he has planned does not mean that he didn't care for them. Maybe he didn't have a father-son relationship with Megumi, but he still cared about him. Same for Yuji, same for Yuta, same for Maki and Inumaki. He really cared about these kids. And that's why he wanted to change the world too, or the society that pretty much destroyed his friends. But let's continue with the episode. Let's keep going, because I'm talking too much. Again, morally gray, personal reason why you want to prevent Yuji from dying. Yes, a personal reason, just because I want to, just because I believe he's a good person, just because in my mind, or what I consider, or in my morals, he is someone that deserves to live. Not because it's the right thing. It was actually a bad decision to let him live. Sadly, it was, and we're gonna see that later on once we reach Shibuya. But he still wanted to do it. Knowing the risks, knowing that it's not what they're supposed to do, he still wanted to do it because it's his personal reason. By the way, I have a video, or short, explaining exactly what cursed objects are, because I've seen that people are a little bit confused. The markings on Sukuna's hands are wrong. Things, little details that bother me. So you know how he has two sets of lines. It happens on like this part of the arm too, and the circles on his shoulders. They represent the other limbs. So it's only, since we're seeing 4 arms here, it should only be 1 line per each arm. The same happens when, like, for example, the mark on his forehead and the mark on his nose, that represents his other face. It's not other face, but it's like the deformed part that he has on his face. And then the lines that he has in his abdomen, that represents the extra mouth. So whenever he has like his extra limbs and his extra mouth and his extra face, those lines disappear. So here, those lines should not be there. In the manga, we don't have lines at all. I don't know why they decided to add them in the anime. You can die right now, or you can find all parts of Sukuna. This is a 15-year-old boy, by the way. Again, for the Jujutsu Society, he's no longer a kid. He's a curse. Dehumanization. Green. He's wearing green. Green is associated with growth, new beginnings, luck. But the most important part here, it's like a new beginning and a little bit of growth, I guess. So this is where we start, like, it starts here, where Yuji starts to feel guilty about a bunch of things that are not really his fault. He's obviously blaming himself for what happened to his friends, when, like, he had no idea what that was. Like, how could he know, right? But yeah, he starts here taking blames that don't really belong to him. And again, we go with the fact that he's a very lonely kid. This particular scene is very important, and they changed it a little bit in the manga. I do not agree with the changes that they did for the anime. The manga did it a lot better, and I'm gonna explain a little bit why. But first, so they're talking obviously about the fact that Yuji's grandfather died, and that he was his only family. So Gojo's like, okay, I'm so sorry about that, and that this whole thing is happening. But then he goes immediately, so have you decided what you want to do? Again, Jujutsu sorcerers don't have time to mourn for the people that they've lost. That's why they go the way they go about death, and that's why we're not gonna see funerals, we're not gonna see gravestones, we're not gonna see any of that for the Jujutsu sorcerers. We're only gonna see it for the normal people. This is another way of the story, of the narrative, to tell you how Jujutsu sorcerers see death and how they deal with it, and how they're always like going fast because there's no time, because they're overworked, because there's not enough Jujutsu sorcerers, and they have to keep going. Since Yuji is not seen as a normal person anymore, he has to learn this way too. The music that they choose for this scene, I believe it's Feelings of Regret. Yeah, it's Feelings of Regret is one of my favorite ones in the soundtrack, and I think the name, it fits, it works. Now, this is the particular scene that they change that I do not agree with, and in the manga, we don't have this scene. We don't have the scene of Yuji gathering his grandfather's remains. What bothers me, it doesn't bother me that they're showing this. What bothers me, it's the fact that Gojo is there. The entire conversation between him and Yuji happens outside. So why does it bother me that Gojo is there? Because this is a very private moment for Yuji, and Gojo, despite the fact that he is a Jujutsu sorcerer, he's emotionally intelligent enough to understand that Yuji, one, it's a normal person, and two, it's a kid that lost his father, basically. By making this entire scene outside, tells me that Gojo understood that he needed to give time to Yuji to do this in private. Him being here inside seems so detached, like he's not reading the room. It feels to me that he's not reading the room, which just doesn't make sense when it comes to Gojo. He's actually pretty good at reading the room. And yeah, he's obviously in charge of looking over Yuji or preventing Yuji from doing something bad. But when he understands that he's a vessel, and of course he would give Yuji this particular moment to himself. Despite the fact that, again, Jujutsu sorcerer process the death and they mourn in a very different way than normal people do, he still understands that not everybody is like him. That not everybody does things the same way. So this is again another little thing that the anime did that I do not agree with. It might not be important to you, it's very important to me, because it speaks again of the emotional intelligence that Gojo has. The whole thing is outside, he eats the finger outside. This sounds so creepy. In the I believe they changed it a little bit in the English version compared to the original one, but you can hear Sukuna kind of laughing, and it's a little bit unsettling. He still doesn't understand why he has to be executed. Like, it's a 15-year-old boy. I forgot to mention that this particular scene that we get in the anime, it's exclusive for the anime, by the way. These statues represent Jizo Buddha. This is the Buddhist guardian of children, travelers, and departed souls. This particular deity is also known for his unwavering compassion, especially towards souls suffering in hell, and of course his dedication to helping others regardless of their circumstances. It is also said that he's in charge of guiding those who have died to navigate the realms and escape the suffering of hell. The reason I mention this, it's because Yuji is heavily related to this particular deity. Later on in the manga, when he finally opens his domain, he's gonna use the hand sign that represents this deity. It's also very obvious in the way Yuji is, how compassionate he is, how he genuinely wants to help people no matter their circumstances. And we're gonna see this even more at the end when they finally defeat Sukuna, and how he mentions that how we turn out to be is entirely because of luck. It's because of the environment in where we grew up, because of the people that are with us. Yuji also mentions that he turned out the way he is because of his grandfather, and insinuates that maybe if Sukuna had somebody like he did, he would have turned out different. Not only that, but the impact Yuji had on Sukuna, it's also reflected at the very end. Sukuna never regrets the things that he did, which is something very important when it comes to Jujutsu sorcerers, dying without regrets. But he decided to take a different path if he gets the option of doing so, which goes back to what I mentioned of Jizo Buddha, the fact that he is in charge of guiding the people that just died and try to help them escape the suffering from hell. And that's basically what Yuji did for Sukuna. He impacted him so much that he decided to take a different path. Another thing is that Jizo Buddha most of the time always has this red bibs. Red is a color that it's directly related to him, and we can even see it in Yuji's uniform, the uniform Gojo gives him. We're only gonna see 2 gravestones in the entire series. One for Yuji's grandfather, the other one for Megumi's sister. Why? Because they were normal people. Nobody else is gonna get a funeral. Nobody else is gonna get a gravestone because of the way Jujutsu sorcerers deal with death. The fact that we're seeing one for Yuji's grandfather, it's again because 1, he was a normal person, and 2, this also represents the transition of Yuji between a normal kid to a Jujutsu sorcerer. That's the only reason why we got this, okay? I've seen a lot of people still struggling or still not understanding why we didn't see a gravestone for other characters. And I really want to get this point across. Something that I talked in the previous video, it's again Sukuna, it's like he has this idea of course the strongest gets to decide what happens to the weak. So for him, everything else is just like, again, worthless, stupid. Why is it not like that? Nobody believed him. Gege Akutami loves foreshadowing. Gege Akutami loves giving us spoilers without actually knowing us knowing. This was a spoiler, guys. This was a spoiler. I'm gonna, once we keep moving on the episodes, I'm gonna start talking about all the moments or the foreshadowing that indicated that Gojo was going to die, and how it was planned from the very beginning. Just to give you an idea, I'm gonna put an illustration, probably 2. One, it's from the very first chapter of the manga. This illustration, of course, like a lot of people, it's the first chapter, right? How are you gonna analyze so much into it if you're just starting to read the manga? But once you move on the episodes and in the chapters, you start seeing things. And one of the things in this one in particular, it's of course we see Sukuna's hands right behind Yuji, and you go, okay, he's like, we see the hands because he's in Yuji's body and he's trying to grab Yuji's body. No. Those hands are actually trying to get to Megumi. Yuji is just in the way. And of course, once he reaches Megumi, The next one's Gojo. So that's one. There's another illustration. If I can find it, I'm gonna put it on the screen. It's pretty much the battles that we're gonna see at the end. Gojo and Megumi, Yuta and Kinjaku, and Yuji and Sukuna. So there's just a lot. There's one conversation in particular that the moment I saw that conversation, I was like, oh, he's gone. The moment I was like watching that conversation and the episodes that came, or like the chapters that came after, I was like, yep, he is going to die. So again, Gege Akutami loves foreshadowing so much, and we have tons of it throughout the entire story. I believe it's more obvious, or it's a little bit easier to identify in the manga. I don't know why people didn't believe him. I don't know why people didn't took him serious. I genuinely don't know what happened, that at some point people stopped seeing Sukuna as this incredibly powerful being, despite the fact that the story is constantly pushing that into you. There's a particular moment, I'm gonna talk about it once we reach that episode, that in the manga, Viz Media just butchered the translation, and in the anime, it's another of the things the anime just didn't do quite right, and that bothers me a lot too, because it's very important. With this videos, I'm gonna try to go over all those points, and I'm gonna try to explain them, and I'm gonna try to show how the story really was pointing towards that. With this, I am not saying Gojo was weak. I am not saying Gojo was not presented as also something so powerful, but once you start comparing them to, or you start putting parallels and everything, and really paying attention to that, you start understanding. There's also a lot of Buddhism involved in all this, a lot of Buddhism inspiration that I'm gonna talk about too later on. We start from here. Like, it's an honor to be targeted by Sukuna. Like, Gojo himself believes it's an honor to be targeted by this Jujutsu sorcerer turned into cursed spirit.
Jujutsu sorcerer turned into cursed spirit.
Turn into cursed object, I'm sorry. So this is what I was telling you at the beginning of the video. A lot of people challenged Sukuna and he defeated them all. He was never defeated during the Golden Age of Jujutsu, which was a very vicious era. Cursed spirits and Jujutsu sorcerers alike were way stronger than the modern era Jujutsu sorcerers and cursed spirits. There was a boost, or like a peak, I don't know how to say it, when Gojo was born, but it was still not to this extent, and that's literally what Kenjaku wants to do. What he wants to do, he wants to push humanity to another golden age of Jujutsu. So yeah, Sukuna was constantly challenged by many Jujutsu sorcerers. He fought a ton of cursed spirits as well, and he was never defeated, and he was always learning from all those battles, because that's just in Sukuna. He's always like very curious. He always likes to learn when it comes to Jujutsu. The marks are wrong here too. The marks are wrong. You can see the mark on his forehead. He's not supposed to have it because that's his true form. That's how he was born. The extra lines on his arms, they're not supposed to be there. It's just one line per arm and one circle per shoulder. So in the manga, I believe the image is much more obscure, so you don't get to see none of the lines. So again, I don't know why the anime took this liberty. Another thing that might not be important, but it still bothers me. I'd win. Okay. I guess this is another reason why people were so confused when Sukuna won against Gojo, and it's because of the confidence Gojo always portrayed. It's another parallel between them. Like, Sukuna knows he is the strongest, right? He knows he's stronger than like everybody around him, but you're never gonna see him saying, I am the strongest. Gojo, on the other hand, of course he knows he's like the strongest compared to all the people around him. And you're always gonna hear him say that he is the strongest. Gojo also loved being the strongest, which directly relates to why all the theories of him coming back didn't make any sense in terms of narrative and his development as character. But that is a topic for another video. So I think probably maybe that was another thing that didn't let people see how Sukuna was in another completely different level. Another thing that I believe influenced in this, it's the lack of attention or the lack of seriousness when we talk about the Golden Age of Jujutsu. I'm gonna say this because I've seen it, because I've seen the comments, and a lot of people don't know the difference in power between the Golden Age of Jujutsu compared to the modern era. Like, they think it was just people being scared of the cursed spirits, but no, it was genuinely a vicious era that pushed all Jujutsu sorcerers to improve. If you didn't improve, you will most likely die. And that's also why Sukuna has this ideology of the strongest gets to decide what happens to the weak, because back in the Golden Age of Jujutsu, that's how it was. In that era, it was a peaceful era, yes, but again, cursed spirits were on another level, Jujutsu sorcerers were on another level, so they were constantly being pushed and pushed and pushed to become stronger and stronger and stronger. Their power started to go down to what we see now in the modern era, where there's like not even enough Jujutsu sorcerers to clean all the cursed spirits, especially because after Gojo was born, we not only see like a jump in number of cursed spirits, we also see a jump in like the strength of them, but it was still not to that degree. In the case of Jogo and Mahito, those are anomalies. It's not normal for cursed spirits to be that strong, but they were probably a lot of them back in the Golden Age of Jujutsu. Sukuna mentions one when he is fighting Mahoraga, but I'm going to talk about that once we reach that episode, because I believe it's honestly very interesting that Sukuna fought that thing. But let's continue.
細かいことはどうでもいいっす。俺はとにかく人を助けたい。
I just want to save people. This is very important. And this is very important not necessarily because like, oh, it's the goal of the protagonist, but because of what's gonna happen. What's gonna happen in Shibuya. Again, Yuji is feeling guilty for what happens to his friends. Yuji, it's gonna start feeling guilty for like a lot of things that are not necessarily his fault. And this is where his entire struggle that we're gonna see later on, it's going to start. Did I do this to help people, or did I do this to save myself? So him saying, no, I did it to save people. So it's gonna happen once we reach Shibuya, right? When all of that happens. So it's literally just him trying to form his ideology, but then all that, it's gonna turn against him. I remember when I first was watching this scene, right? Again, we go back to they're morally great characters that are not heroes, and to me, it was like, okay, it's a noble cause. He wants to help people. He wants to, and then this guy is like, no, that is not a good reason enough. Like, even if it was for like a family member, a dying wish of somebody, it's still not enough. And I didn't understand at the beginning. To me, it was good enough, right? A good guy that wants to do good stuff, and then you start actually like paying attention to all the things that are going to happen, to all the things that these people go through. You start analyzing into their dehumanization, how they're trained like soldiers, and you start understanding. You see why Principal Yaga was like very adamant into making Yuji give him a good enough reason. Not just because a family member asked me to, not just because I want to help people, because that is not strong enough to hold you into what you're going to. And we see it with other characters. Like, there's a moment in one episode that Megumi is gonna ask Maki about it, and Maki It's like, I don't do this to help people. Like, I don't care the people that I help or not, because it's not a strong enough reason to do this, to get into this, to go into something that it's literally going to strip you away from your humanity. So it's here when we start seeing like the first evolution into Yuji's ideology, or like the moments it start forming his ideology.
ざけんな俺は
君は自分が呪いに殺された時もそうやって祖父のせいにするのか
あんた嫌なこと言うな
I thought the
気づき
same.
を与えるのが教育大好きな祖父を呪うことになるかもしれんぞ呪術師に悔いのない死などない
Jujutsu sorcerers never die without regret.
君はなぜ呪術コース
だって俺にしかできないって思ったことはない
So this is the first change that we're gonna see in Yuji, or like when he starts understanding and processing this whole thing to start forming his ideology.
ああ今スクナのせいで人が死んでるかもなってへこんで
This is an anime only thing. This particular
俺
scene,
にはか
I think it was probably the only thing, the only change in the anime and manga that I actually like a lot is the fact that they decided to foreshadow Shibuya with this particular speech. It's sad, but it fits perfectly fine.
俺のせいじゃねえって自分に言い聞かせるのか
Like, it's not my fault, right?
自分が死ぬ時のことは分からんけど生き様で後悔はしたくない
I don't want to regret the way I live. This is gonna carry until the end of the manga. We're gonna see a lot of characters like dying, but they leave with this same thing. They did not regret the way they live. Not even Sukuna. I mean, what he did was terrible, but even in the last moments, he did not regret the way he lived. He understood that his ideology was not the right one, or that it was not the strongest one, but that doesn't mean he regret what he did. Because I've seen a lot of people saying that, oh no, at the end Sukuna regretted what he did. He never regretted what he did, okay? Gojo didn't regret the way he lived either. So again, this is gonna carry until the very end of the manga, and of course once we start reaching those episodes or those chapters, I'm gonna talk more in depth to it. Right now, just don't forget that line. Very important. It's gonna stay until the very end. Everything that Yuji said here, it's gonna come back and hunt him in Shibuya. And that's why I think it was very, I guess, nice that they foreshadowed Shibuya. This place is huge. He thinks that room it's huge. I really wonder how he was living with his grandfather. It was probably very, very hard for him. And again, that's why he didn't have a smartphone. They probably really didn't have any money. Hello.
でも今は君がいる君の中のスクナが力を取り戻すために指のありかを教えてくれる
I just think it's very interesting that Gojo thought that Sukuna was gonna tell them where the fingers are. Sukuna never like, he feels them, he can feel them, some of them, but he never said where they were. Like, if they found them, they found them. If they didn't, he couldn't care less. He genuinely didn't care until he found something interesting to him, something amusing for him. And he starts seeing it in, of course, Megumi. But even then, he still was not telling them, or not working as like a radar to find the other fingers. So he was wrong in that. Gojo was wrong in the fact that he thought Sukuna would be interested in finding his fingers. Like, why would he be interested, right? If Yuji is able to contain him. Because again, he's not a vessel. He's a containment. That's why Kenjaku mentions that he is a failure, because he wanted to create a vessel, not something to contain Sukuna, the way Yuji is. You think he's going to be that nice? And he, like, at this point, he's like, I think we can come to a win-win agreement. I don't know what he was thinking, but Gojo being Gojo.
今度こそ元気そうだな。
空室なんていくらでもあったでしょ。
Megumi is the embodiment of an introvert person. As another introvert person, I'm telling you this. The only thing is that Megumi is grumpy. Like, on top of being an introvert kid, he's very, very grumpy. I would never say what he said, like, oh, there's plenty of rooms, why did you choose this one, right? And of course, I would never do this to anybody. I might think about it, but I will never do it. So that's it for the second episode of Jujutsu Kaisen. This is manga chapter 2 and 3, in case you want to go back and compare them. I feel like I talked too much, but I hope I made myself clear. It's a little bit hard for me to put all my thoughts together. I don't have a script for this videos. I kind of like have notes, but that's about it. I don't do scripts. I don't feel comfortable doing scripts. Probably the only videos of what I do scripts for are my short videos. But yeah, this one is just me watching the episode one time, reading the manga chapters that it corresponds to, writing my notes, and just like talking as I go. If you have any questions, any comments, anything else to add, please leave it in the comments below. As long as you're respectful, it's fine, whatever you want to say. Maybe you have a different interpretation of things, which is perfectly fine. If you leave any questions, I'm probably going to respond to them at the end of next video. But thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please follow me on my social media and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!